welcome to Stress Month, December, right? I'm chatting with Lesley Waldron. Lesley, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, hello, and thank you so much for having me, Emily. Emily and I are basically very similar in terms of our background and training and whole outlook on life. So it is always lovely to have these conversations. I'm an integrative women's health coach, which means I look at the whole woman, at her well-being, her physical, emotional, spiritual, to a certain extent, well-being. I work with women on their mindset, and all of this through the lens of that peri to post-menopause transition, which is can be an incredibly empowering time, but also can be really difficult. My background is I was a personal trainer and running coach. I'm an outdoor fitness coach, and movement is very much part of the magic of looking after ourselves in my book. But that finding joy in movement is often where we need to get started, rather than being held down by the heavy weight of what I should be doing. So I start with joy in everything that I do and try and help women find sustainable answers to their well-being through this transition phase.
Awesome. Right, stress. It's a biggie.
It is a biggie, and in our preamble we were talking about some of the stresses that, that we often feel at this time of year. And it's not just about there is the stress of December. If you've got kids, there's the stress of like, what is it that they're supposed to be wearing today? There's something going on, whether it's doing something for the raffle or something, they've got some kind of fancy dress day or whatever, staying on top of that, class secret Santas, office work dues, who are you going to send cards to, presents to? There's like adds to our overall life load. Plus it's dark and cold and wet. So I think about stress as like December is a really stressful time of year. I've actually started a calm mail series to my mailing list, where every day I'm sending them a tiny dose of calm, because I think having a dose of calm can be really helpful. So I like to think about stress in December as being a mixture of the physical stress of the season with the emotional stress of the season. So, and that there are kind of different approaches to both of those things that can help us manage both. So the physical stress might be about, it's about the stress to our body is that our body doesn't feel safe. And it doesn't necessarily have the information that it needs to function well. And when I talk about that, I'm thinking about, are we well enough hydrated? When we're dehydrated, our brain function slows down, we're not getting enough water to our muscles and to our joints, and we can feel a bit stiff and creaky, and that's a stress on our bodies. So simple things like having enough water can be really helpful, particularly if your alcohol consumption goes up.
Which in December for a lot of people it does.
For a lot of people it does.
Yeah.
So things like staying well hydrated, and like when we're busy and stressed, sometimes it's not as easy to nourish ourselves well, to get the veg in, to cook elaborate meals, because it feels like you're rushing from one thing to another. So my favorite ways of adding in good nutrition, and this is not about dieting at all, we need the information from vegetables and nutrients from vegetables and fruits that really nourish us. So simple ways are soup. So it's a great way to get loads of veg in. If I've got time at the weekend, I try and make 2 different soups with as many vegetables as possible, often the things that have left over from my veg box. But like shop bought soups aren't terrible either. They do have vegetables in them too. Soup is really so simple to make. But fine to go out and get that. But loads of vegetables in the soup. And then also things like having a smoothie in the morning, so where you can add in both fruit and vegetables so I quite often have like spinach and raspberry with some protein powder in the morning, and then straight away I've kind of got 2 of my 5 a day, which should not be more than 5 a day. But so if you can get breakfast and lunch right, even if the evenings are going a little bit awry, then it's a great start to the day. It's a great way to know that you're nourishing yourself well. And takes away the stress. Now, obviously, with that added fiber and with the added hydration, it also helps things move through our body. So it helps support our liver and our kidneys, but it also helps our digestion. It helps us get rid of toxins. It helps us get rid of excess estrogen as well. If you've got good digestion, fiber helps with constipation. Constipation is also a bit of a stress in the body. So those are two of the things that might be stressing our bodies physically. And the other thing is that sometimes, because it's dark and cold and wet, we often don't spend very much time outside. And our body literally, like we're designed to operate like in daylight. Like that's how we evolve. And so when we don't get any real daylight on our skin and as information to our bodies, it actually does do strange things to our stress levels, to our levels of blood cortisol. So getting outside in our daylight hours and going for a walk, it doesn't have to be a run and it doesn't have to be very long, can be really helpful. And it also helps if we are feeling stressed, we've got really high levels of cortisol, which is not great for our hormone balance anyway, then going out for a walk will help calm us down, help us process some of that cortisol and feel better about ourselves afterwards. Now, I know that things are busy. I mean, I've got a good waterproof and I'll go out whatever. But I'm like, if you've got meetings, if you can take one on the phone and go for a walk, if you're meeting a friend for a coffee, if you grab a coffee to go and walk it out, find ways of getting that daylight, preferably in the morning. And I even like on the school run, so just slowing down. So I have to walk from it's an awkward village school, so I do have to drive there, but I try and walk consciously from the car park to the school and back again, just like looking at the trees, looking at the sky, absorbing the daylight.
I'm just going to say here as well, get a dog. Frankly,
get a dog. Yeah.
If you've got a dog, you have to go out and walk.
Dogs not just for Christmas; it's for your stress levels too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, dog walking means that you do just have to go out there, and dog walking is actually a really great habit. I don't know about you, but certainly when I work with clients, the dog walk is often what I will start helping them to hang new habits on.
Yeah.
So that they are able to, you walk the dog and then you might do some squats and some lunges, or you walk the dog. You'd have a glass of water before you walk the dog, and then you come back and you make yourself a breakfast or something like that. We hang habits on the dog walk. So that's the physical stresses. And then in December, there's often this sense of overwhelm, this sense of emotional overwhelm. It's like there's expectations that we put on ourselves. There's added kind of addition to the mental load, which is often carried by women. Often by women who are juggling the needs of family, the older generation and the younger generation, and trying to be that person in the middle. Plus, often there are deadlines for the end of year for work, or there are work dues, or suddenly you've got less work time because of team away days. Often seem to happen around this time of year. So it's and then turn into the Christmas do. So it can just feel like there's just too much to do and too little time. So giving ourselves a chance to take a break, to do a Sunday. My favourite thing to do is when life feels a bit like that, is a Sunday evening download. It doesn't have to be Sunday, but it really helps with the Monday blues, where you literally grab a piece of paper and write absolutely everything down. So absolutely everything, and I mean, like must send a card to Great Aunt Marge, need to get that proposal sent for work, need to, remember the kids' nativity, have my diary out, have that big piece of paper out, scribble it all down, which helps your brain process it. So it helps your brain to start to think things through by writing it down, and then you take a look at that list and you decide what So can you, and I like it, what do you really need to do? What can you dump, get rid of? just doesn't need to be on there. Will Great Aunt Marge remember that you sent her a card? Is that work deadline a real work deadline, or is it just because it's the 31st of December soon? You know, could it be something that everybody could come at fresh in the beginning of January? Or delegate. So have we taken on the mantle of our mothers who created the perfect, I was talking to a friend about this the weekend, mothers who created the perfect Christmas, and that we have to do the same thing, and we have to cook everything from scratch, and we have to make sure everyone's got the perfect present, and we have to do that. The answer is generally no. So I have never done Elf on the Shelf, for example. That was a clear, dump that one off the list. I'm not that kind of mother. I also set clear boundaries around who I will see at Christmas. Who's really important? Who is going to fill my cup? And when I say, I would love to see you, but we're really busy, let's meet up in 2022 with a slightly indefinite COVID committee around that. So do dump or delegate, let go of things, and then acknowledge how hard the last couple of years have been. And perfect isn't possible. Perfect is often a bit boring anyway. Flying by your seat of your pants can sometimes be fun. Not for everybody, I know. And the way that I like to frame this is to think about how you can be all of these aspects of managing stress. How can you be more tree? So out of my window in front of me here, I can see a big oak tree. I call it the grandmother tree because it's the biggest tree. It's the biggest oak around here. Like, I don't know, it's probably wider than my arm span.
Wow.
And I, she's wise, and she's probably seen the plague, and COVID looks like nothing in comparison to that. Been through a few world wars, and she gives me perspective. But also, what she does every single year is she sheds what she no longer needs in the winter. So let's go of those leaves. So just as we need to dump or delegate off our list of to-dos, that's really important. So shedding what no longer serves us is really important. But in the winter, a tree isn't just sitting there doing nothing, it's shoring up its roots. A tree that is not well hydrated, is dry, is pretty much dead, and will just fall over in the next storm. We need to withstand the next storm. Let's not have any more lockdowns, but please. But knowing that we're shored up and resilient is really important. So that's where a good hydration and a good nutrition can really come in, can really support our immune system and help us with reducing the stress on our bodies and on our brains. So how I like to think about how we manage our well-being and our stress in the winter season is just how can we be more true, and to have that be a question that you ask yourself every morning. How can I be more true? See, that works for me.
Awesome. I love that because it just takes it out of our head, doesn't it? And it's like, okay, what would a tree do here? A tree would be strong and withstanding stuff because it's getting its nutrients and it's getting its water and it's shed all the stuff it doesn't need, and it's not worrying about what it looks like, and it's just being a tree.
And it's resting, so it's only doing what is necessary in the winter. It is not trying to bloom. If you see a tree that looks like it's putting out buds in the winter months, now there's something wrong there, isn't there? So it's going to bloom too early, and it will not withstand, the real harshness of winter. Now the buds do begin in the winter, but they're really firmly protected until the spring comes. So you can see there's growth underneath, but it's really protected. Mainly they're resting and preparing for the year ahead. And that's what the dark winter months are for us as well.
See, I like to take that one step further, but I realise this is massively antisocial of me. I think we should be more bare and just eat for months and then hibernate.
Oh, now I do like the idea of hibernation. I get to this stage of the year where I think hibernation is a good option. But
And what I
go
love
down
is
at all.
that a bear goes into its set backwards, so that he doesn't even have to turn around to come out in spring.
Now you see, that's managing your energy,
Isn't it?
So I think there is something really useful about that bear, about how the bear manages his energy. He doesn't really care about what he looks like, he or she. He is preparing for next year by nourishing himself well, or herself well, and he's also preparing to make it easier in the spring too, isn't he? By backing in. I love it. So I think we can all have a bit of tree and a bit of bear, and put the two things together, and we can manage the winter beautifully.
And I'm off on a tangent here, but bears do climb trees, so trees have to be pretty strong to withstand a bear.
Oh yeah, we've got trees and bears going here, no problem. Have we lost you yet? But I think the key thing is to know that there is a choice about December stress. There is a choice about managing our stress. And we all know that stress exacerbates our experience of perimenopause symptoms. Stress is what brought me into, was stress, and the impact of stress was what created this kind of overload for me, that actually brought me into started me thinking about perimenopause in the first place 7 or 8 years ago, when somebody said, oh, because I was struggling with night sweats, because I couldn't sleep, because I was anxious for the first time in my life. My mood was really low. I was hair loss, eczema, all sorts, aches and pains. And somebody suggested I was perimenopausal, and I was horrified by that because I was in my late 30s. But it was a gift, really, because it led me down this avenue of learning more about it. But I now recognise that a lot of it was the impact of stress on my sex hormones.
Yeah.
Which meant that actually, because cortisol steals the stress hormone cortisol steals away from the production of progesterone and estrogen, that I was experiencing all of these symptoms. And then once I resolved the stress slightly, gradually over time, it resolved a lot of those issues. Now, depending on where you are in your perimenopause journey, it will have a different impact. But reducing stress can be really, really helpful.
Absolutely. And one other thing I just want to add is I think when we're in a place of stress, someone saying to us just reduce stress can feel quite difficult, because I know, just like you, I was in that very stressed place, and being told reduce stress felt like what? And that's where adding water, adding nourishment, adding simple movement, adding nature, so you're not consciously thinking, oh my god, it's another stress, I've got to remove stress because I'm stressed and there's more stress to remove. It's thinking, okay, what can I do that will nourish me? What can I do today that will just be for me and nourish me?
Yeah, I think that's perfect, because actually what we don't want is for self-care to feel like another thing that goes on our long to-do list. Self-care is part of how we do things rather than being an additional to-do. With my clients, and you're probably the same, we work on micro habits. So the things that don't even feel like they are actions. So the things like, have a glass of, how easy can you make it to stay well hydrated during the day? And it's incredible the impact that drinking more water can have.
Yes.
It's often the first place I start, because for somebody who's working crazy hours, managing a family can find it really tricky. But water and the breath, water and remembering to take a deep breath can be hugely helpful. And so if you are feeling absolutely up to here, and that the idea of even writing that list feels too much, then a glass of water and a deep breath and just standing outside, there we go.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Lesley.
You're very welcome, lovely. Thank you for having me.